Hi, we are back with Pathfinder Wrath of the Righteous builds for unfair difficulty, and today we are taking a look at the Azata Mythic Path. If you are new to the series and don't know how we do our builds, they are all made for unfair difficulty and none of them exploit bugs, so they should all remain viable despite any bug fixes or patches made to the game. It's also worth mentioning that all my builds are tested from early to late levels. They are not made just for the sake of YouTube videos. I do them firstly for my own unfair playthroughs, and it's very important to me that they are actually effective at every level in the game, so I can actually get through with my playthroughs and not just remain the helm of theory crafting. Because this is a turn-based system, but the game is real time with pause, sometimes builds don't go as I'd expect them, and that's why I think the testing is important, so I can both bring you the best builds and actually be able to beat the game on unfair difficulty, which is my main goal. With all that out of the way, let's get to our builds. For this Azata Mythic Path build, we are going to go as a sorcerer into the cross-blooded subclass. For our race, we are going to choose Kitsune, mainly because of the Kitsune magic, a +1 to the DC of any enchantment spells cast. The heritage is going to be regular Kitsune. Our background, I chose arcane, so this way we are able to craft scrolls. Ability points, strength doesn't matter for us, so we can make it a dump stat. Dexterity, 14 is reasonable. Late game, we will have some spells we can use as touch attacks, so having a 14 won't hurt. Constitution, I left it at 13, so we can increase it to 14 with our level 20 ability point. Intelligence at 12, Wisdom also 12, and Charisma is our main stat, so we really want it at 20, and for level 4, 8, 12 and 16 we are going to increase our Charisma. Skill points don't really matter, but if you choose to go with the Scholar Arcane background, increase Knowledge Arcana so we are able to craft scrolls. For our first feat we choose Spell Focus Enchantment. For Bloodline, we're going to choose Fey Bloodline, which gives us the Bloodline Arcana, a +2 to the DC of Compulsion Subschool spells. Most good enchantment spells are also from the Compulsion Subschool, so this is very strong for us. For the Sorcerer bonus feat, we take Greater Spell Focus Enchantment. So, by level 1, we have 1 to the DC of spells from Kitsune Magic, 1 from Spell Focus, 2 from Fey Bloodline, and 1 from Greater Spell Focus, so a total of +5 to the DC of enchantment spells. Secondary Bloodline is going to be Draconic Blue. We are going to use electricity spells late game as our main source of damage, so this is good to increase their potential. My choice for level 1 spell was Hypnotism. This affects only a certain number of enemies, 2d4 8d, but it is a strong effect that lasts for up to 8 rounds, and you should be just casting this spell with all your turns during the early game. Here we are going to see what is probably one of the worst fight for us, Hosilla. Since she is a boss, she has a higher hit dice. Let's see if we can check it out. It's a 6. So we do not have the best chances of landing our Hypnotism, but even against her, we can land our spell, and the save is not too bad. Here we rolled too low, let's cast it again. And keep our Leopard alive. Again we rolled too low and we keep casting. This is mostly what we do. Against boss enemies we are a lot weaker, but in regular fights this is really effective. Did we hit? Oh, we actually hit this time, so here we finally got lucky, rolled more than 6, and when we do manage to hit, she doesn't have a very high chance of a success. It's 40% chance of success for her and 60% chance of failure, if I'm thinking right. And now she is down for several turns, so our companion's life is much easier. You can see she's not attacking, not doing anything. And against non-boss enemies with lower hit dice, you should be hitting at least one enemy with every cast, and this is very effective. As you can see, she was down for several turns, and this makes fights much easier for your companions. Level 3, we get to choose a feat and we take Spell Focus Conjuration. I know we could get Expanded School Conjuration in our Mythic feats, so we get the Spell Focus Enchantment and Greater Spell Focus Enchantment to Conjuration, but I do think our Mythic feats and abilities are in much higher demand than our actual feats, so I'd rather spend 2 feats to get some bonuses to our Conjuration spells than spend a Mythic feat for the same effect. So we take Spell Focus Conjuration, at level 5 we take Spell Penetration, 7 we take Meta Magic Persistent Spell. This makes so that enemies, even though they can make a saving throw against a spell, they need to roll again, and if they fail the second saving throw, it's as if they had failed the spell saving throw. So basically make enemies roll twice against your spells and take the lower result. And here we get Greater Spell Focus Conjuration. At level 9 we take Greater Spell Penetration. Let's see how we do. At level 10 here, we are going to cast Hideous Laughter, and because we are at Mythic level 3, we already have a Mythic ability called Best Jokes, which kind of spreads the Hideous Laughter. We should be able to see it here. Because one enemy failed its save, it spreads to other enemies that are close by. So we actually got 2 enemies with a single Hideous Laughter, and you can see their chances of success are not high, especially because this is a persistent meta magic spell. So even if they succeed, they have to roll again to actually get out of the spell. I'm also gonna try and cast, let's do a nested pit here. Oh, and we get hit, but one enemy falls, 2 enemy falls. You can see their reflex saving throws, relatively high chance of failing. And I think we do not even have a bonus to charisma here. I forgot to cast Eagle Splendor with someone. But yeah, we have a very high chance of keeping enemies at bay. Now the Minotaur has better saving throws. Let's see if we can hold him off. So some boss enemies like the Minotaur might be problematic for us. But if we get lucky, even those enemies we can take down. Especially because of the persistence meta magic. We end up with an actually decent chance of making him go down with Hideous Laughter. So here our party members should have a very easy time cleaning up. Level 11 we take as a feat Elemental Focus Electricity. This is going to be especially important going forward because this is going to be our main source of damage. It's going to be elemental spells of electricity. Level 13 we get Dispel Synergy. Now we can open fights by casting Greater Dispel, which we get at the same level, and lowering enemy saves at the same time so we can hit our CC spells. And we also get a bonus feat, and I took improved initiative. At level 15 we get greater elemental focus, electricity, and by this point we should already have a couple of good electricity spells and they do reasonable amount of damage. At level 17 we take Meta Magic Bolster to increase the damage of our electricity spells, and 19 we take Meta Magic Heighten. We also get a choice of extra feat, and I took Iron Will to increase our saving throws. For our mythic levels, we start by taking Instrument of Freedom. I think this is a good option for this build because it boosts our companions' damage, and since we are not going to do a lot of damage ourselves, we can buff our companions' attack so they can do even more damage against the helpless enemies due to our crowd controls. And our actual mythic ability is going to be Second Bloodline, Arcane Bloodline. Right when you get it, you already get to choose an Arcane Bond, or if you don't want it, you can take a familiar. There are some decent options, but I do like Arcane Bond more. You also will get, moving forward, extra choices for spells due to the new Arcana, and this is very useful for us since cross-blooded sorcerers have less spell learns than regular sorcerers, and new Arcana is going to help us overcome that. And for our last choice into the Arcane Bloodline is our School Power. For the School Power, I chose a +2 to spells of Conjuration School. We have some decent spells in the Create Pits. We also have some good conjuration spells in our Azata spellbook. And later we even get Clashing Rocks from the Arcane Bloodline, which is a very powerful conjuration spell. I don't think there is a need to take this for enchantment, since our DC of enchantment school spells is already high enough in my opinion, but I could see someone reasonably taking this for evocation, since there are some good damage spells in evocation and even some crowd control which we are going to be using, but I do prefer conjuration, though I do think evocation is also a reasonable choice. Now moving to level 2, we take Spell Focus Mythic Enchantment to increase the DC of our spells. At Mythic level 3 we have a bug here, it's showing the same choice, but what we actually take into Mythic level 3 is Best Jokes. Now our Hideous Laughter spell is going to spread to several enemies when we cast it. And at Mythic level 4 is our biggest power spike. Here we get the choice of an Azata power and we take Favorable Magic. Now enemies have to roll 2 times to make saving throws of our spells and take the worst result. And also, when we cast a spell that does damage and requires a save to have, even if the enemy succeeds, the damage isn't halved, it's only decreased by 25%. We also get to roll twice when making rolls against spell resistance, so that's why I did not feel the need to take Spell Penetration Mythic this early, since Favorable Magic already helps us a lot in overcoming enemies' spell resistance. And for our feat, it was not Spell Focus Mythic, we already took this earlier. Here we actually take the Expanded School into Evocation. Soon we are going to get some strong evocation spells and we want to use them to do some damage. At level 5 we take Ascendant Element Electricity so we can cast those evocation spells without needing to worry about resistance or immunity. At Mythic level 6 we take another power and it's going to be Zippy Magic. Now targeted spells like Hideous Laughter, for example, are cast twice when we use it, and also deal some extra damage. This works for the Hideous Laughter, our main spell, but also for some evocation spells that do some decent damage, for example Key Shout. We also take Spell Penetration Mythic here, and now we should have no problem at all in overcoming spell resistance with this and favorable magic. At level 7 we take a first level in Abundant Casting, and at level 8 we take Life Bonding Friendship. Now we basically have a better last stand on everyone in the party, and we also get to choose a teamwork feat which is going to be shared by everyone. I chose Shake It Off as it increases saving throws and is overall useful for every character. We also take the second level of Abundant Casting. At level 9 I took Last Stand as an extra mythic ability, and we get to choose another teamwork feat. Here I took Seize the Moment for our level 9, and at level 10 we take another power. I took Incredible Might. This increases our attack and damage rolls by 10, or we can choose to increase the attack and damage roll of our allies by 5. This is a morale bonus, so it is an upgrade from Greater Heroism, just a +1 though, so maybe even though you don't attack much, you are better keeping it to yourself, so you can at least hit your Clashing Rocks more often. And as a last mythic ability, I took Greater Abundant Casting. For our sorcerer spells, we start with some not too strong options, especially because they do target only a certain number of AD, so as you level up they will get weaker and weaker. But early game they are still strong, and my main choice for early game is Hypnotism. It's relatively effective. Later you get Grease. Even Magic Missile and Vanish can be useful. But going forward, what you are looking for are spells of the Conjuration school and also enchantment spells, especially if they have the Compulsion and Mind Affecting subtypes. So that's what you should look like when picking spells: Conjuration and Mind Affecting Compulsion enchantment school spells. There are several of those you can choose, and some notable ones are Mind Fog. This is especially good for this build because you can cast something like Hideous Laughter and then cast Mind Fog on top of that enemy. This way, if he fails the Mind Fog saving throw, he will have a much harder time getting out of the Hideous Laughter, because for following saving throws he will have a -10 penalty. Some other notable spells are Greater Dispel Magic, especially because after casting Dispel Magic enemies will have a -2 to saving throws, and Chain Lightning is one of our main sources of damage. The best damaging spells for us are the single target ones, because with Zippy Magic they are cast twice, so Chain Lightning, Key Shout. Level 8 we get another great spell with Storm Bolts, and at level 9 there are several good options. Overwhelming Presence and Icy Prison Mass are great crowd controls. Clashing Rock is a single target, so gets doubled by Zippy Magic, and Tsunami is also a strong crowd control with some decent damage. In the Azata spellbook there's nothing new in level 1 spells, but in level 2 we already get some Azata exclusive spells. Ode to Miraculous Magic is the best one for us in my opinion. Increase the DC of our spells, you should always have this up, and there are also some good support options, and even some crowd control. At level 3, Believe in Yourself I think is by far the best. In my opinion you should cast this on everyone you can. It gives morale bonus to abilities, so you can increase character strength, dexterity, whatever stat you like. and it's a +1 per 4 caster levels, so at caster level 20 should be a total of +5 increase, though it seems to be bugged right now and maxes out at a +2. Even though it is bugged, I still think it's very strong. Having a +2 morale bonus to a stat, you should use all your casts of level 3 spells with belief in yourself. But there are also other good options, like Nature's Grasp, or even Optimistic Smile. At level 4, we get Waterfall, which is a good spell, does some damage, and makes enemies prone if they fail the save, and vulnerable to cold. So if someone can do cold damage in your party, this is a great option to use. Though if there's no one with cold damage, maybe you are better just using Elusive Nature on your companions. At level 5, I actually think that one of the best spells here is not a Azata spell, it's a Cacophonous Call. The main reason is because enemies don't get a save every turn against this spell, and Nauseated is a very strong condition. Nauseated enemies can't cast spells or attack. So if you hit enemies with this, they are out of the fight basically. But we also get Second Breath, which can recover companions' abilities, and Sudden Call is in my opinion not close to Cacophonous Call, so if you are going to use a CC spell here, use Cacophonous Call. At level 6, we get Protection of Nature, which gives a 50% miss chance against your entire party, very strong, and Song of Steel, which increases the DC of our spells, so amazing for us. And at level 7, we get some very good spells like Revolt, which can make enemies turn against themselves, Heroes Never Surrender, which recover all your spell slots up to level 7, so after you get this you should never worry about running out of spells. And even Water Torrent's good, can make enemies vulnerable to bludgeoning, so if anyone is carrying a bludgeoning weapon, this should be a 50% damage increase for them. Equipment, if you have seen my Nano build, it's very similar, it's things that increase your spells DC. For head, we want something that increases Charisma, because Charisma does increase our spell DC. For amulet, I like to wear this one, it increases our Charisma and spell DC, because Charisma also helps with that. For the glasses, there is one that you find very late on the game, but gives a +2 to mind affecting spells, so you should use them when you get it. For our robe, there's one that increases the DC of spells that target Fortitude, and we have several of those. For ring, there's one that increases the DC of enchantment school spells. We also can find one that increases the DC of illusion spells, which you can wear, sure, but we do not focus on illusion here, so they will not be as strong. For belt, I'm just using something to increase our HP, but you can wear also a belt of dexterity to increase your chances of hitting clashing rocks. For gloves, Twisted Temptation for extra DC, for enchantment school spells. Boots is just a freedom of movement. Here, bracers is Bracers of Mind Break, another increase to enchantment school spells DC. And for our staff, there's two good options. Quarterstaff of the War Mage, which increases the DC of evocation spells, if I'm not mistaken, and Quarterstaff of Coercion, which increases the DC of spells that target will saving throws. And for cape, we also have something that increases the DC of evocation spells. So even our no enchantment spells should have a high DC. We also have bonus to evocation and conjuration spells. Even though we don't have many bonuses, some of them target fortitude, so Robe of Determination will increase their DC. And for meta magic rods, we don't care too much about empower or maximize. The ones that matter the most for us are quicken meta magic rods. Let's see some combat with this control mage build now. I'm gonna start this fight with a tsunami. Here we hit our first enemy and it's a failed save. The enemy has to roll twice and the difficulty DC is a 45, so it's not easy to succeed. We hit some more enemies, again a failed save, and a third failed save. They do not have a very high chance of succeeding, though the damage is not high also. I'm backing up here because there will be some enemies spawning behind. And now let's cast Hideous Laughter. I'm going to quicken it and cast this one with the meta magics. And you can see how many Hideous Laughters we cast here. And that's because our Hideous Laughters spread. And one failed save. The Hideous Laughters has a DC of 50. It's a level 5 spell. And the enemies have to roll 3 times to succeed, because this one has persistent magic. So even if the enemy makes a save, because of persistent magic, they have to roll again, and only then will they be able to actually save against the spell. And everyone that fails spreads the Hideous Laughter to another target. And we also do some damage because of the zippy magic, even with a Hideous Laughter. And yeah, many failed saves here. Everyone will be down for a while because of the Hideous Laughters. Yeah, a lot of failed saves. Baylor succeeded, but failed in another one. And he has to make 2 saving throws because Zippy Magic makes it so that we cast targeted spells twice. So we cast 2 instances of Hideous Laughter and 2 of them spread until the Baylor. One of them he failed and the other he succeeded. Now some enemies spawn near us. Let's cast an Overwhelming Presence here to make sure they will not interfere, although they are already laughing also. But let's check out our Overwhelming Presence DC. It's a 56. Enemies have to roll twice as well against this, so they have a very low chance of succeeding. And now for some damage spells. Again, because of Zippy Magic, spells we cast are cast twice if they are targeted spells. And we do some very decent damage because of that, especially with Chain Lightning. Our Chain Lightning spread to several enemies. And the same happens if we cast something like Clashing Rocks, because it's a targeted spell. Unfortunately, they also consume 2 uses of Quicken Meta Magic Rods. Let's try here Clashing Rocks actually, not Key Shout. So we can see our chances to hit. Where is our attack? Here. Our chances to hit are not bad because of Incredible Might. But I do not have any buffs here, not even a dexterity belt to help us. And we have 1 negative level. Still, we actually hit. And the second one we miss. But our chances are not bad because it targets touch AC. And we cast it twice because of Zippy Magic. Now, to finish off the combat showcase, I'm not going to do the entire fight. Because we do not do a lot of damage, it will take a while. I'm just going to bring our dragon here, so we can see his breath weapons damage. He needs to get a little bit closer. And you can see how long enemies stay stunned. And his breath weapon deals 29 d10 sonic damage. So it's very strong, though enemies can make a save against it, and unlike our saves, his are not nearly as high. So even though he does some decent damage, it's nothing too impressive. We actually do more damage than he does. Let's just finish off with a Storm Bolts, which is our most damaging spell. You can see here it was a bolstered Storm Bolts, and it deals around the hundreds of damage, and we can really spam Storm Bolts to stun enemies into oblivion. They have very low chance of succeeding. We can use Tsunami to push them away if needed, and here enemies are actually body blocking the other two, but they wouldn't be a problem. Even if they could get to us, they would be stunned by Storm Bolts or pushed away by Tsunami. We could just quicken a Tsunami and push them away if they actually got close to hitting us. So yeah, I really like this build. It's very effective. As you can see, enemies do not have a high chance of succeeding their saves against us, and with a party actually trying to do damage, we have a very easy time taking enemies down because they won't be attacking our party, and most of them might even be flat-footed because of conditions like stun and some others. So this is it for the Azata build. This is particularly fun for me because it's not often that you get to actually play a control mage that is effective in Pathfinder games. I never got to play one on Kingmaker, and having one that works and works very well here in Wrath of the Righteous was great for me. I had a lot of fun, but I also want to hear from you in the comments if you like the build, if you ever tried something like this, and of course if you have any improvements or changes that you'd make to this build. But until the next video, I hope you have a good time.